Thought for the day. Freedom on the inside comes when validation from the outside no longer matters.
Welcome to 7 Minutes for Yourself. I'm Christina Aina, and I'm so glad you've joined me for what I believe will be 7 of the most enriching minutes of your day. Let's take this time to reconnect with ourselves and improve our well-being.
In today's episode of 7 Minutes for Yourself, we talk about doing the internal work so that we no longer need external validation. Have a listen.
External validation. Wanting other people to validate us is a direct shadow of when we were kids, us having a need and desire for approval. And many times what happens is when we were kids, maybe we did receive it or didn't receive it. And what happens is later on in life, we continue to crave the approval and the validation of other people, hoping that, like our parents, they will actually give it to us. And what we'll find is unless we do the shadow work and we stop searching for external validation, we will find ourselves constantly seeking from other people. And for me, this was a game changer when I learned about this. I became aware of my own shadow for wanting external validation from other people. And I didn't realize how much it actually ran my life. In a way, I was also trying to prove myself. I was trying to prove myself from either childhood friends or family that maybe didn't believe in me when I first started getting on YouTube. So I was like trying to prove people wrong. And there was also a part of me, I realized that from my own childhood, and many of you know my story, but from 7 to 15 years old, I had no freedom at all. I wasn't allowed to have friends, wasn't allowed to go to school. I'd earn going to school activities. Normally I was locked outside of the house having to do yard work with my brother, wasn't allowed to watch TV, had to only got TV dinner at night and a bowl of cereal in the morning, so very malnourished. All of a sudden, have all this freedom. But the main core wound that I realized that came from craving external validation is that I have abandoned myself in childhood. When I look at my childhood, there was a time when I abandoned myself. You could say that it's the abandonment wound. The abandonment wound is what was causing me to not validate myself because I was afraid that if somebody else would abandon me, then I would feel that same sense of emptiness or I wouldn't survive. Even having emotionally unavailable parents as a kid. That can cause us to then feel afraid of being abandoned. So how can I change my sense of self to not be abandoned? And we will then bend like pretzels. We'll bend backwards. We'll do whatever we can. We have trouble saying no. We become people pleasers. And the key and the cure to the abandonment wound, you want to know what it is? It's to stop abandoning the self. To stop abandoning the self. Same with the validation. The reason we want validation is because we don't want to feel abandoned. But if we would validate ourselves, if we would stop abandoning ourselves and start doing what we want to do and filling up our own cup, we wouldn't need the external validation. This was the game changer for me. It was like literally a whole new world. All of a sudden, I have this potential to where when people ask me if I want to do something, if it's going to make me lose myself in the process, then I can say no. Before, I couldn't say no. Because if I were to say no, I would lose the validation of other people and I could be abandoned again. And I would feel very empty and hopeless. So what I ended up doing is I ended up changing my value system as well. This is another key thing. We all have values we live by. Values are kind of like clusters of beliefs. They're virtues. And if we live by the value of wanting people's validation at the top of our list, then we end up being guided by that force. So for me, I had to become aware of the strong importance I put on wanting other people's validation, wanting other people's approval, and I had to start giving it to myself. And then I started to value authenticity more than anything else. What became more authentic to me was looking for just the authenticity of me being the real me. Even if the real me meant I may get rejected. There are times people have said, hey, come, let's go do this. Can you come meet me here? And I'm like, no, I actually, it doesn't mean that I always say, there's times I do want to go do something with friends or something, then I do it. But before, like literally I would do something like drive 10 hours to someone's birthday party because there were no flights that went into this place because I didn't want to say no, and I actually had to cancel photo shoots. I had to cancel all these things. That was something I did because even though it's a great friend of mine, I couldn't say no. And now I look back and I'm like, what was I doing? I woke up from it. But the key to curing needing validation from external sources is validating the self, and also stop abandoning the self. Look at your value system. Are you valuing significance and validation over authenticity and realness? And if so, how can you rewire that? It's really just becoming aware of it and starting to realize, who are you? What virtues do you decide to live by? As I started to go and stop abandoning my own self, that's when everything began to change. So you could heal the abandonment wound by giving yourself validation, and by knowing that you can stop abandoning yourself, knowing that also it's a good thing if you are being your true self and some people don't like it. You're actually attracting people that really like the real you versus this contorted thing that changes based on adapts to everybody else around. So that's really what makes the biggest change in this process, is when we become aware of this wound and then we begin to heal it.
That concludes today's episode of 7 Minutes for Yourself. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Today and every day with your kiddo is a gift. Enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in.